Welcome to the HFY Tales channel. Remember to like and subscribe if you like the story. Enjoy and take care.
The twin suns hung low in the sky, casting a warm, golden hue across the alien landscape. Towering spires of bioluminescent plants thrived along the rocky terrain, their vibrancy a stark contrast to the oppressive atmosphere that permeated the air. This was Red Hal, a world where beauty and brutality coexisted, where the laws of nature entwined with dogma dictated by ancient traditions. At the edge of a sprawling valley, a congregation was forming outside the Temple of Ruin, a carefully crafted structure of jagged stone and shimmering silver that stood as a monument to the priest's authority. Their robes billowed in the gentle breeze, each figure a silhouette against the setting suns, guardians of a society weighed down by chains both literal and metaphorical. Within the shadow of the temple's towering walls, Elira, a young member of the oppressed Zalith race, felt her heart race. Today, she had dared to venture beyond the prescribed boundaries, longing for freedom and adventure. Her insatiable curiosity, however, could not eclipse the ever-looming dread of discovery. Breathlessly, she recalled the stories of her ancestors, tales of rebellion and valor whispered down through generations, tales that ignited the spark of hope in the hearts of those who wondered what lay beyond the limits. But for Elira, hope had dimmed in the face of cruel reality. The surface of the valley gleamed as she picked her way along the uneven ground, heart pounding as she approached the temple. It was there she first saw the unmistakable banners emblazoned with the emblem of ruin, signs of a punishment waiting to unfold. A clang of metal echoed through the air as the unmistakable sound of chains reached her ears. She pushed through a throng of onlookers, her pulse quickening at the sight on the makeshift platform. A fellow Zalith was being restrained, bound and kneeling, a symbol of dissent being put to the ultimate test by the priests. As the lead priest, the Ros, raised his hand to silence the crowd, Elira's breath caught in her throat. He was a figure draped in power, with eyes that glinted like polished stones, harboring the wisdom of ages alongside a cruel arrogance. The words that flowed from his mouth fell like hammers, resonating against the gathering shadows. This traitor has dared to defy the sacred teachings of the ruin. Today, we demonstrate the consequences of disobedience. Elira felt her hands clench into fists, frustration bubbling just beneath the surface. She wanted to scream, to protest against the injustice unfolding before her. Could none see the absurdity of punishing those who dared dream of freedom? But words caught in her throat, ensnared by the fear of the priest's retribution. That was when she noticed him, an unexpected arrival amidst the turbulent scene. A human, dressed in garments that looked both strange and familiar. He stepped from the perimeter with purpose, his presence stirring a wave of confusion and curiosity amongst the crowd. The stories of humans had reached Red Hal, of their valor and rebellious spirit, but until this moment, Elira had doubted their existence. He moved toward the platform with resolve, his gaze locked on the priest's performance as if challenging the very authority that sought to bind their kind. Elira could feel the weight of his stare as he focused on the imprisoned girl, a flicker of compassion beneath the layers of strangeness. "Stop!" The human's voice rang out, firm and commanding. It cut through the murmurs of the crowd like a knife, creating a ripple of uncertainty. The roast turned, eyebrows raised in condescension. "You dare interfere in matters that do not concern you, outsider? Your punishments are unjust," the human declared, stepping forward. "You bind your own kind in chains for daring to dream. And for what? To uphold your tradition of fear?" There was a spark in Elira's heart, a realization that maybe this human could pave the way for change. But as Theros's gaze hardened, she swallowed her hope. "No one asked for your opinion, human." The Ros stepped down from the altar, flames of anger flickering beneath his words. "Leave now, or you will face the same fate as this traitor." A charged silence enveloped the crowd, eyes darting between the two figures as tension escalated. Perhaps it was madness to hope, but the sight of this human standing defiantly against the priest stirred something deep within Elira, a longing for courage, for the spirit to resist. As the human's jaw tightened in determination, Elira felt the chains of her fear begin to shatter. She could remain silent no longer. Maybe today the world could be changed. Maybe today, they could find a way to fight back. The tension in the air thickened with every passing heartbeat. Elira watched as the human stood firm, his resolve igniting a flicker of defiance in her own spirit. The crowd surrounding the platform was a mix of fear and admiration. She could feel the murmurs swaying like branches in a storm. "Release her," the human commanded again, his voice steady but passionate, drowning out the drone of objection from the priests. Elira, her heart racing, took a hesitant step forward. This was not how life was meant to be. She had been shackled by fear, made to believe that dissent led only to more punishment. Yet the human's unyielding conviction was like a spark to dry kindling. "Silence!" The roast thundered, turning his icy gaze on the human. "You know not what you invite upon yourself. Leave or join this traitor in her punishment." As the priest's words echoed in the heavy silence, Elira felt a sense of urgency wash over her. She glanced toward the one being who might hold the key to her freedom and a world unbound by the confines of tradition. Mustering every ounce of courage, she shouted, "Please, let him speak." The crowd turned toward her, disbelief evident as her voice carried the weight of desperation. Uncertainty rippled through their ranks, some whispering amongst themselves, questioning the authority they had long revered. In that moment, Elira felt alive. She had dared to challenge the chains that bound her, sensing the faint stirrings of rebellion in the hearts of those around her. The human shifted his focus toward her, a knowing look passing between them, a silent agreement. The roast tried to regain control of the situation, his brows furrowed in anger as he addressed Elira. "Do you also wish to be punished, girl? Your foolishness will serve as a warning to others." "Then let me go," she snapped back, emboldened by the human's presence. "If standing up for what is right brings punishment upon me, then let it be so." A gasp rippled through the gathering, shock evident on the faces of her fellow Zaelith. Elira felt a surge of adrenaline as the realization settled upon her. She was not alone. The human was beside her, and together, they could challenge the chains that bound them. Suddenly, the human stepped closer to Elira. "We can escape together," he whispered urgently, his expression fierce and protective. "Every moment spent here in chains is a moment wasted. I will not let them harm you." In that heartbeat, her resolve solidified. Elira nodded, trusting in their shared determination. "We can't stay here," she replied fiercely. "We must go." With a sudden burst of energy, the human surged forward. "Elira, let's move." They dashed away from the platform, hearts pounding as they ran through the throng of stunned onlookers, leaving behind the clamor of objections and disbelief. As they fled into the winding alleyways that guided them away from the temple, Elira felt exhilarated by their pursuit of freedom. Her senses heightened. She could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins, igniting every nerve. "Where do we go?" she panted, glancing back to ensure they weren't being chased. "Follow me. There's a hiding place I know," the human replied, his urgency palpable. His confidence steadied her fears, and he led her through the narrow passages of the town that twisted and turned away from the sacred space of the priests. They emerged onto a rocky path that led toward the outcrops of the temple complex, the golden sands underneath their feet stretching endlessly toward the horizon. The vibrant hues of the sunset painted their escape in a surreal beauty, contrasting sharply with the chaos they had just left behind. "Who are you?" Elira finally asked, her curiosity surging. "What brings you to Red Hal?" "I'm Kale," he replied, a faint smile breaking through the adrenaline-fueled tension. "I'm a traveler. I came in search of a new world, but I found something much more important instead." Elira's cheeks flushed, warmth blooming within her as she met his eyes. "What is that?" "Courage, hope, change." His gaze softened. "You showed me that today." They reached a small alcove nestled between two rocky outcrops, hidden from sight. Kale pushed aside vines and dust to reveal a small cave that promised temporary sanctuary. As they stepped inside, its coolness enveloped them, and Elira's heart began to slow. "This is where we can rest for a moment," Kale whispered, ensuring the entrance was obscured. "We need a plan." Elira nodded, still racing from their escape. Her mind swirled with questions as she lowered herself onto the rough ground. What do we do now? Kale sat across from her, and the gravity of their shared moment seeped into the air between them. We cannot allow the priest's tyranny to continue. There are others who feel as we do. What can we do? She questioned, feeling the weight of the world rested heavily on her shoulders. We are just two people against the system. Perhaps Kale's eyes sparkled with determination. But change begins with just one voice. Together, we can rally those who also seek freedom. You know your people best. Can you help me reach them? Elira's heart swelled, ignited by his words. I can. There are those who defy the priests in secret, who dream of freedom. Then let's bring them all together, Kale urged, the gravity of their mission dawning. The more of us there are, the harder it will be for the priests to silence us. As they spoke, a sense of purpose kindled within Elira. She was no longer alone. She had found an ally in Kale. Together, they could forge a new path, one that left behind the chains of oppression. And as the last light of the sun dipped below the horizon, Elira felt hope blooming in place of fear, a hope that called to her heart, whispering of a future where she, alongside Kale, could fight for the life she had always dreamed of. The cave was cloaked in shadows, a cocoon where Elira and Kale could gather their thoughts after the tumult of their escape. The faint glow from phosphorescent crystals embedded in the rocky walls illuminated their features, casting their faces in a soft light. If we're going to gather allies, we need to lay low for a while, Kale advised, his voice low as he scanned the darkened entrance for any signs of discovery. The priests will surely send their enforcers to track us down. Elira nodded, the reality of their situation pressing heavily on her chest. They had escaped the immediate wrath of the priests, but a much larger battle loomed ahead. I know a handful of Zalith who share our beliefs. I can reach them, but we have to be careful. Trust your instincts, he replied encouragingly, warmth creeping into his tone. I'm sure many will be ready for a chance to stand against oppression, especially after what we witnessed today. As the sun's final rays faded behind the jagged mountains, a new determination flickered within Elira. Their liberation depended on more than just their courage. It needed a spark, a gathering of voices that would rise in unison against tyranny. What's the plan? Kale prompted, his gaze steady upon her. We should send word to my friend Jaren, Elira said, her thoughts racing back to the trusted ally she had relied upon since she was a child. He has connections with others who oppose the priests. If anyone can help organize a meeting, it's him. Then that's what we'll do. Kale gestured toward a narrow opening at the back of the cave. If we're careful, we can reach the outer village and find a way to contact Jaren. Elira took a deep breath, hoping her courage would be enough to see them through. All right, let's go. Navigating the rocky terrain under the cover of darkness proved challenging, but with Kale by her side, Elira felt an unexpected sense of strength. Every step fueled her resolve, banishing the fears that had, for so long, haunted her. As they crept through the winding paths that threaded their way back into the heart of the village, Elira's thoughts were consumed with the possibilities ahead. Would Jaren believe her? Would he stand with them against the priests? In little time, they reached the outskirts, where small homes nestled against each other, their walls woven from the vibrant materials that defined Zalith culture. The familiar sights ignited memories of laughter and warmth as children played in the twilight, blissfully unaware of the turmoil looming over their society. Kale glanced around, his instincts sharpening. We need a place to hide while you find Jaren. There's a small barn up ahead. Elira gestured. It should be safe. They ducked inside the barn, closing the door swiftly behind them. Dust settled overhead as shafts of moonlight cascaded through cracks in the walls, illuminating the shadows that cloaked their sanctuary. They leaned against the wooden beams and exchanged glances, tension and excitement crackling in the air. Is he trustworthy? Kale asked, his voice a hushed whisper. Jaren is one of the few who knows the truth about the priests, Elira affirmed, confidence seeping back into her tone. We've shared our hopes of freedom for years. He will understand. Then we'll wait for a moment, and you can go seek him out alone, Kale said. I'll keep watch. Elira hesitated, understanding the risk of them being seen together. but she appreciated how much faith he placed in her instincts. "Let's go together. If we're caught, we need to work as a team." Kale nodded, his eyes brightening at her resolve. Together, then. They stepped outside into the cool night, the air thick with anticipation. Shadows danced under the pale moonlight as Elira led Kale toward a familiar path that wound through the heart of the village. As they approached Jaren's home, a sense of longing washed over Elira. Memories of sleepless nights spent dreaming of revolt flooded her mind, dreams she had buried deep under layers of fear and tradition. When they reached Jaren's doorstep, she turned to Kale. "Stay close. If something goes wrong, we'll need to flee quickly." He nodded, his expression serious but encouraging. "I'm with you." Elira knocked softly, her heart thudding in her chest as she felt the weight of their mission bearing down upon her. Moments felt like an eternity until the door creaked open, revealing Jaren's familiar face, a visage of courage etched with worry. "Elira!" he gasped, his eyes wide with disbelief. "You're back." "Aye, there's no time. We need to talk." She stepped inside, quickly beckoning Kale, who joined her within. Once the door clicked shut, Jaren's gaze shifted between them, confusion etched across his features. "Who is this?" "This is Kale," Elira introduced, her voice steadying. "He saved me from the priests. We have important business." Jaren's brow furrowed, and he gestured for them to sit at the worn wooden table. "What's happened? You've returned sooner than expected." Elira took a deep breath, recounting the events that led her to this moment, the punishment of her kin, her daring escape, and the unity they now sought to forge. She spoke of the fear that gripped their society and the unwavering hope that burned in her heart. As she shared their struggles, Jaren listened intently, his face shifting from skepticism to understanding as realization dawned upon him. "You mean to challenge the priests?" "Yes." Elira's voice trembled with urgency. "The time for silence has passed, Jaren. We can't let them dictate our existence any longer." "And you believe you can rally others?" Jaren's eyes glinted with interest. "We have to try," Kale interjected, leaning forward. "We need to gather those who are willing to stand against oppression, together. Our voices will echo louder than the priest's fear." Jaren leaned back, pondering their proposal. "It won't be easy. The priests hold power through manipulation and control. Many fear speaking out, even if they share your beliefs." Elira held his gaze, determination cementing her resolve. "But they will listen if we stand united. We have to bring them together, ignite the spark of rebellion." After a moment of silence, Jaren sighed deeply. "All right, I'll help you. We can arrange a secret meeting in the forest at dawn. It's time we took a stand." Relief washed over Elira, and she felt the weight of her fears begin to lift. "Thank you," she whispered, hope blossoming anew. As they exchanged ideas and strategies, Elira could sense the shift around her, the energy in the room ignited by the promise of change. There was a shared understanding in their eyes, a budding alliance forged in the fires of hope. And as the night drifted into dawn, Elira believed fervently that they would no longer be shackled by fear. The voices of change were ready to be unleashed. The first light of dawn painted the sky in hues of gold and rose, chasing away the remnants of night as Elira and Kale made their way through the dense underbrush toward the clearing where they would meet their allies. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and wildflowers, a contrast to the heavy anticipation weighing upon their shoulders. "With every passing moment, more of our kin arise from their chains," Kale said, his voice low but bright with enthusiasm. "We are on the verge of something extraordinary." Elira glanced at him, a smile tugging at her lips. "It feels unreal. It's as though we're stepping into a new chapter of our lives." As they reached the clearing, they quickly found that Jaren had prepared for their arrival. A low stone altar stood at the center, encircled by thick trees that bore witness to the impending gathering. A modest fire flickered to life, its warmth complementing the cool morning breeze. One by one, familiar faces began to emerge from the surrounding foliage. Elira felt a mix of nerves and exhilaration as her friends and allies appeared, their expressions a blend of curiosity and determination. "Elira!" called a voice from the back. It was Lyra, a spirited Zalith known for her fierce heart and adventurous spirit. She rushed forward, her vibrant hair catching the light. "We heard whispers of your daring escape. Have you truly returned to lead us?" "Yes," Elira replied, her heart swelling with pride and solidarity. "But we're here to do more than talk. We need to unite and stand against the priests. Today marks the beginning of our resistance." A murmur swept through the gathering, both awe and trepidation dancing in their eyes. They were used to speaking in hushed tones, living under the heavy hand of fear for too long. Jaren stepped forward, his presence commanding. "We must be strategic. The priests won't take kindly to a rebellion, and we must prepare for the worst. We need a plan that will catch them off guard." As Elira surveyed her friends and allies, she realized they were stronger together, each of them a vessel of defiance, waiting to be unleashed. "We should split into smaller groups," she suggested. "We will need to gather information on their operations, find out where they hold power, and uncover their secrets." "I can gather intel from the market," Lyra volunteered eagerly. "The vendors often hear whispers, and some might not be loyal to the priests." Kale chimed in. "I can scout the Temple of Ruin. I've seen their enforcers preparing for something big, and I'd like to know what they are planning." Elira's heart raced at their willingness to stand up against the very forces that had oppressed them for so long. "That's perfect. If we work together, we can forge the connections we need, and with every piece of information, we grow stronger." As they established logistics for their separate tasks, excitement stirred within Elira. They were preparing for a fight and forging a formidable community, one willing to rise against the darkness that had shrouded their lives. "Remember to meet back here this evening," Jaren reminded them as the plan solidified. "We'll regroup to share our findings and strengthen our resolve." The morning bustle of determination ignited something deep within Elira, a fire that she hadn't known existed before this moment. As they polished their plans and carved their futures, she felt a weight lifting not just off her shoulders, but from those around her. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, illuminating the clearing, the group dispersed, each charged with purpose and hope. Elira turned to Kale, who watched her with admiration woven into his gaze. "You inspire them," he said quietly, grinning. "I can see the strength you carry. You empower them to dream again." Elira felt her cheeks flush. "It is not just me, it's all of us. Together, we can bring change." Kale stepped closer, his presence solid and unwavering. "But you are the heart of this rebellion. You have always believed that freedom is worth fighting for." With Kale standing beside her, she felt a swell of confidence, one that surged through her veins as she met his gaze. The bond they were building grew more profound, driven by shared goals, hopes, and dreams. "We have to stay grounded," Elira reminded him, the exhilaration still thrumming beneath her skin. "There's much at stake." "Grounded, but not afraid," Kale replied, his voice low with conviction. "Fear has kept us subdued for too long. Now is the time to be bold." With those words ringing in her ears, Elira felt an unbreakable resolve surging within her. If they were to stand a chance against the priests, they had to embrace the very heart of rebellion. They had to be unafraid. As they moved back toward the village, Elira felt the weight of countless eyes upon her, not a burden but an obligation, an acknowledgement that they were ready to rise. The storm was gathering strength, and together they would face it with courage. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the forest clearing, Elira stood before a small fire, anticipation fluttering in her chest. Tonight, they would gather to share the intelligence they had gathered throughout the day. The air buzzed with electric excitement, and Elira could feel the hope thrumming among her friends and allies. The others began to trickle back into the clearing, some appearing from the darkness like specters, their faces lit with determination. Lyra was the first to arrive, her expression animated. "I dove headfirst into the market," she declared enthusiastically. "The vendors there are ripe with gossip. I overheard bits and pieces about a gathering of the priests. Something big is being planned soon." Elira's heart raced. "What did you learn?" Lyra leaned closer, her voice low. "They're discussing potential retaliation against those who resist them. If they catch a whiff of our rebellion, they plan to quash it before it even begins. We must move quickly. Jaren followed closely behind, nodding in agreement. That aligns with what I observed. The priests are tightening their grip, using fear to manipulate those who might waver. They are preparing a show of force. A murmur of concern rippled through the group, but Kale stepped forward, his voice calm yet firm. If they're planning to act, we need to be proactive. It's time we take the fight to them. Elira felt the weight of their collective determination as she shared a glance with Kale. What do we need to do? We can't confront them head-on just yet. It would be foolish, Jaren interjected. Instead, we must undermine their authority first, disrupt their supply lines and sources of power. If we sow chaos in smaller ways, we can keep them guessing. I'll gather a group to sabotage communications, Lyra suggested. If we can cut off their ability to contact each other, it will confuse their plans. Kale nodded. That's an excellent start. If we can attack their supplies and disrupt their gatherings, we'll show our people that the priests are not invincible. Elira's heart raced with possibilities. Then let's do this. Let's show them we are not afraid to rise. But if we're to succeed, we need to stay organized. We must divide our focus, strike swiftly, then regroup. The group quickly formed a plan around each ally's strengths. Excitement mixed with trepidation, but through it all, Elira felt the fire of rebellion growing stronger, flickering in the eyes of her friends. Each one of them understood the stakes now, and they were ready to fight for their freedoms. As discussions continued, Elira found herself stealing glances at Kale, who spoke animatedly about tactics in the face of opposition. There was a fire in his spirit that drew her in, a magnetic force that made her believe they could achieve the impossible together. Once the planning dispersed and everyone shared their plans for the tasks ahead, Elira and Kale lingered by the fire. The embers glowed warmly, illuminating the shared vulnerability enveloping them. Are you ready for this? Kale asked, tipping his head to meet her gaze, his green eyes searching hers for any hint of doubt. She took a deep breath, her pulse steadying. This is what we have been waiting for. I can't go back to living under the priest's thumb. I've seen how they crush our spirits with fear. We need to be the ones to change that. A soft smile crested his lips. You're incredible, you know that? Your courage is infectious. Elira felt warmth bloom in her chest at his words. And you balance me with your strength. I couldn't do this without you. Kale moved a little closer, the space between them shrinking. Whatever happens, Elira, I want you to know that I'm with you, every step of the way. Her breath caught slightly in her throat as the gravity of their partnership deepened. She had never expected to find someone like Kale, a companion willing to share the weight of rebellion, a connection forged through hope and shared dreams. We'll face the future together, she promised, her voice resolute but soft, no matter what comes. As their bond solidified in that quiet moment, Elira knew that they didn't just have a shared purpose. They had each other, a shared resilience that could withstand the storms of corruption and fear the priests wielded. With their plans set and their spirits ignited, the group scattered into the darkness, each embraced by the freedom of determination. Their paths would soon converge in the heat of battle as they prepared to strike the heart of oppression. Elira stood with Kale for a moment longer, feeling emboldened by their unspoken agreement, and as they turned towards the night, the dawn of rebellion shimmered on the horizon, promising change. Dawn broke with a vibrancy that belied the tense currents rippling beneath the surface. Elira stood at the edge of the forest clearing, her heart pounding in anticipation. Surrounding her were the faces of her fellow rebels, each marked by determination and purpose. Today was unlike any they'd faced before. It was the start of their campaign against the oppressive regime. In hushed tones, the group reviewed their roles one final time, the air thick with energy. Elira felt a wave of reassurance wash over her as she glanced at Kale. His presence steadied her, lending confidence to her resolve. Lyra, Jaren, and I will be heading to the warehouse on the outskirts to disrupt the supplies, Elira said, her voice steady. We can draw the enforcers away while Kale and the others create a diversion at the temple. Kale nodded firmly, his expression serious. Keep in contact through these. He held out small communication devices that they had fashioned. Use them to alert each other if anything goes awry. If we're to pull this off, we need to pivot quickly based on what we learn. The group dispersed into their respective teams, and Elira felt the weight of anticipation settle over her. She glanced at Kale one more time before they parted, both of them exchanging an understanding gaze. There was a bond between them now, a silent promise that they would each return, their hearts entwined in the pursuit of freedom. As she moved through the trees with Lyra and Jaren by her side, every footfall felt as though it were resonating against the earth. The message had traveled through the village, and whispers of rebellion hung heavy in the air. Elira's heart raced with equal parts excitement and fear. "I've performed a few reconnaissance trips to the warehouse," Jaren murmured as they approached the dilapidated structure, concealed by overgrown brush. "They unload shipments here daily, but the enforcers are most active in the early afternoon." "Then let's make sure we're in and out before they notice us," Elira urged, the adrenaline thrumming beneath her skin. "We must create enough chaos to give our allies a fighting chance." The three of them moved cautiously toward the entrance, hearts pounding in synchrony. The quiet of the surroundings felt ghostly. It almost seemed that the entire world held its breath, waiting for their action to unfold. Once they reached the door, Elira pressed her ear against the wood, listening. The sounds of crates being moved and hushed voices filtering through punctuated the calm. "Ready," Lyra whispered, her eyes alight with resolve. Elira nodded, her heart thundering. She pushed the door open, and they slipped inside. The interior was dimly lit, with flickering lights casting eerie shadows across the cluttered space. The scent of stale air and damp wood filled her nostrils, adding to the tension that clung to her. They crouched behind a stack of crates, peering out at the scene unfolding before them. A few enforcers were organizing supplies, their faces hardened by duty. "On my count," Elira whispered as her heart raced. 1, 2, 3. They sprang into action, launching into the open space. Elira charged forward, and her companions followed suit. The enforcers barely had time to react before they were upon them. Elira felt the rush of adrenaline coursing through her veins as she tackled one of the enforcers, quickly subduing him while Jaren and Lyra fought off the other. The scuffle was frantic, echoing around the warehouse as shelves rattled and items tumbled to the ground. Suddenly, alarms sounded, red lights flashing to life alongside the chaos they had ignited. With a sense of urgency, Elira shouted, "We need to destroy the supplies. Now!" Lyra nodded, darting toward a stack of crates filled with provisions. Elira reached for a nearby tool, ready to create maximum damage. There was no room for hesitation now. Jaren rushed to assist her, swinging a crowbar against the mortar, letting the goods unleash their contents. The ruckus drew the attention of more enforcers, and Elira felt a jolt of fear as they began storming toward them, shouts echoing in the confines of the warehouse. "We have to finish this." "Cover us," Lyra yelled, her arms hoisting crates and tossing them toward the advancing enforcers. Elira swung the crowbar one last time, shattering the last crate. Groceries and supplies cascaded down, creating a barricade behind them. Their goal was in sight, but they were quickly running out of time. "Let's go. Now!" Jaren shouted, and they sprinted toward the exit just as the first wave of enforcers reached them. They burst through the door and fled into the cover of the trees, the sounds of chaos and shouts following them as they ran. "We did it. We actually did it," Lyra gasped, laughing breathlessly as they navigated the thicket. Elira could hardly catch her breath, but exhilaration surged within her. "Of course we did. We took the first step." But just as the thrill of victory surged, Elira felt dread creeping in. What about Kale and the others? They're at the temple. "We need to regroup with them," Jaren said, determination etching his features. "If we succeeded here, they must be fighting their own battle." They quickly moved back toward the path leading to the temple, urgency igniting their every step. As they approached the sacred site, Elira's heart raced. A mix of excitement and fear twisted together, tightening in her chest. As they drew nearer, the sounds of chaos erupted from within the temple. Elira felt her pulse quicken. They were so close, Go. We need to get inside, she cried, charging toward the entrance. Inside, she could hardly process the scene before her. Kale and a group of rebels were locked in a fierce struggle with the enforcers, their movements fluid and coordinated. Elira, Kale shouted, spotting her through the chaos. She rushed toward him, adrenaline surging anew. We took down the warehouse. The priests won't see this coming. Kale's gaze ignited with pride, and he pushed through the skirmish to her side. Good work. We need to hold our ground here. We're pushing back against their tyranny. With Kale by her side and the momentum of their victories behind them, Elira felt the fire of rebellion blaze brightly. If they could conquer this moment, they could inspire their people and change the course of their futures forever. As the battle raged on around them, Elira and Kale stood firm, ready to confront the darkness. The fight had only just begun, and they would stop at nothing to reclaim their freedom. The sun hung low, casting a haunting glow over the Temple of Ruin as Elira stood amidst the aftermath of their conflict. They had disrupted the priest's stronghold, but the cost weighed heavily on her heart. Faces of the fallen haunted her thoughts as she surveyed her friends nursing wounds and treating the injured. As Kale approached her, concern flickered in his eyes. We did well today. The seed of rebellion has been planted. Yes, Elira replied, but her voice faltered. Still, I can't help but think about the risks we took, the friends we may have lost. Just then, a commotion erupted from nearby. A guard rushed forward, breathless. Enforcers have captured some of our own. Lyra is among them. Panic surged through Elira, and with a fierce determination, she responded. We can't abandon them. We need to rescue them immediately. The resolve spread among the rebels like wildfire. Then we go, one of them shouted, voices rising in unity. Kale's gaze met Elira's. If the priests think they can intimidate us, we must show them they are wrong. We will not back down. Elira nodded, the fear transforming into purpose. We move now, and we bring them back home. With urgency fueling their every step, Elira led the charge toward the marketplace, her heart racing. As they approached, she could hear the faint sounds of distress mingling with the bustle of traders and shoppers. They stealthily maneuvered through the alleyways until they reached the source of the turmoil. There, under the flickering lights, they spotted the enforcers, surrounding Lyra and a few captured rebels. Elira felt rage surge within her like fire. On my signal, she whispered, her gaze locked onto the guards. When? Kale asked, gripping his weapon. Now, Elira shouted, springing into action. They rushed forward as one, launching themselves at the enforcers. The clash that ensued was fierce, the rebels fighting not just for their friends, but for their freedom. Elira fought with every ounce of strength, the adrenaline coursing through her, fueling her every move. Lyra, she cried, slicing through the chaos to reach her friend. Lyra looked up, her eyes widening in recognition and relief. Elira. Kale fought beside her, and together they broke through the lines of enforcers, freeing Lyra and the others. The tide of the battle turned as their momentum surged, overwhelming the enforcers and driving them back. Let's go, Kale yelled, ushering everyone to retreat as the enforcers began to regroup. They dashed through the alleyways, the scent of sweat and courage hanging thick in the air. Elira felt a mix of exhilaration and disbelief. She had led her friends into battle, and they had emerged victorious. As they reached the safety of the woods, their breaths came in ragged gasps, but laughter soon bubbled up among the group. They had done what many thought impossible. They had rescued their own. Thank you, Lyra exclaimed, a glimmer of gratitude in her eyes. I thought I was done for. It's not over yet, Elira said, glancing at Kale, whose expression was a blend of pride and urgency. We must keep pushing forward. As they returned to the rebel camp, Elira realized that they had ignited a fire within their people. They weren't just fighting for their lives. They were rising to reclaim their destiny. We'll face the priests again, Kale said softly, his eyes full of determination. And next time, we'll do it with even more strength. Elira nodded, a wave of hope washing over her. They had forged unity and defiance, and with each small victory, they grew bolder. As they settled in for the night, Elira found herself beside Kale, their hands brushing. "Together, we can do this," she murmured. With a deep breath, she smiled, reveling in their shared conviction. The cost of rebellion was great, but the promise of freedom, for their people, their future, was worth every ounce of courage they had summoned. Tonight, as the stars twinkled above them, Elira knew that they had started a movement. The winds of change were on the horizon. Their fight had only just begun, and they would face it together.